Hi, delay or echo is a wonderful effect that lets us play way more notes and rhythms than we ever could physically. And it all started using tape. Over the years, analog and digital circuitry took over the world of delays with less expensive, more reliable, and more portable pedals, until even the makers of the most successful tape delays, Roland and Echoplex, stopped making them. And yet, the allure of having real tape repeats with tape's flaws, sound, saturation, and quirks caused quite a few people to hold on to the discontinued originals. And when those would eventually break down, companies like ECHOFIX from Australia would provide repairs and spare parts to tape echoes. A few years ago, ECHOFIX decided they know so much about these things they're going to make their own. It started with the EF-X2 in 2019, and as of 2022, the EF-X3, with important new features that go beyond the capabilities of the originals. In this video, I'll take a look at what this can do, how it compares to Roland's RE202, and pros and cons overall. Before I start, a quick disclosure: ECHOFIX sent me the EF-X3. It cost me in customs and fees, but still way less than retail. No money changed hands, they have no say over the content of this video, and don't get to see it before it's published. This channel is funded mainly by viewers who subscribe to exclusive content and book updates on Patreon, YouTube Premium and ads, and price check affiliate links in the description, which help the channel regardless of the product you choose to buy. Okay, let's start with an overview. The EF-X3 comes in 3 versions. This tabletop version with wood sides and a removable tinted acrylic lid. Then there's a slightly more expensive desktop version with a Tolex enclosure. And then finally a rack mount version. All 3 come in different panel color options. Beside that, they have the same feature set. The EF-X3 is all analog with audio fed in through a fairly tasty preamp and then sent into 3 parallel circuits. The main star of the show, a tape delay with 4 playback heads for different repeat rhythms, and then audio is sent in parallel to an analog BBD chorus and a spring reverb. The main output is in mono, as are the BBD chorus and spring reverb circuits, but you can pick up the audio from each of the 4 delay heads or delay taps separately from 4 outputs in the back, which you can use to create a stereo ping-pong-like delay, or even a quadraphonic delay if you like, because there's 4 of them. Then finally, you've got bass and treble EQ controls for the main output. These have no effect over the outputs in the back, which you might want to EQ separately, as this is tape after all, and it can get a bit noisy, especially if you feed repeats into themselves. In terms of connectivity on the back, aside from the 4 outputs for each of the delay taps, are a balanced input and output, a wet-only version of the chorus and reverb, and a copy of the preamp audio. There's a tape auto stop function which you can disable, which will disable the tape's motor if it doesn't detect audio for a few minutes, to help decrease wear on the tape and the heads. On the front, aside from a mono input and mono end-of-chain output, are CV inputs, control voltage inputs to control the tape speed and feedback, and then bypass pedal inputs for the chorus and echo and reverb. And then to complete the overview, the EF-X3 comes with a cleaning kit and spare tape. Okay, let's take a listen to what we've got here part by part, and we'll start with the preamp. This works even if I turn the motor off. Takes it a bit to stop. And can produce nice distortion. So that's the preamp in a nutshell. Let's get the motor going and take a listen to the tape echoes. So what we've got here are 4 separate playback heads along the path of the tape. There's one that's really close to the record head. Then another that's a bit farther away. Then another that's even further away. And then the sound on sound one, the 4th one, even farther away. And the overall speed of the motor also controls the rate of all 4, all the way from a slap echo kind of effect when the motor's at the highest speed for the playback head that's closest to the record head, up until to the longest delay time. Which is the sound-on-sound playback head at the slowest motor speed. The slower the playback speed, the more lo-fi the repeats. And as you increase the tape speed, you get more high-frequency content, more fidelity, but a shorter delay time overall. The feedback knob controls the number of repeats all the way counterclockwise. You just get one, and then as you turn it clockwise, you'll get more repeats. All the way to self-oscillation. Things get way more interesting when you start combining playheads, and for that we first need to try and get the tempo of the chorus echo to be in sync with the tempo of the SEO2. Takes a bit of back and forth. There's no tap tempo, MIDI sync, or analog clock sync. You just have to do it by hand. Okay, good enough. First, head 1 on its own. Tape head 2. 3. 4 combines heads 1 and 2. 5 combines 2 and 3. 6 combines 1 and 3. 7 combines 1, 2, and 3. And then the sound-on-sound switch adds a 4th tap to all 7 options. The 4 heads aren't spread out equally, by the way, so if we just narrow it down to one loop, the first 3 are pretty much equal. And then the 4th sound-on-sound one is farther apart. Like I mentioned earlier, you can pick up each of the 4 delay taps from the outputs in the back and pan them any way you want in the stereo or quadraphonic spectrum. In the intro/outro track to this video, I picked up all 4 outputs, panned 2 hard left, 2 hard right, mixed it in with the main output, and you're hearing the result. It sounds lovely in stereo, and I did try this in quad. Quite an immersive effect. One con of using the 4 outputs in the back is that you only get the audio from each of the 4 playback heads. You don't get your source audio or the chorus or reverb audio. So that's going to take up at least 4, 5, or 6 inputs on your mixer or audio interface. It would have been nice, I think, if they made an option where some of the outputs were normal to the others if you just use, say, 2 for stereo. Let's move on from the tape echoes and move on to the effects, and for that I'll turn off the motor. The EFX3 has a really nice mono analog BBD chorus. So this is our raw tone. And with the chorus on, it becomes this. And you've got control over chorus depth and chorus rate. So certainly a substantial effect. Without. With. Without. And if you like, you can turn on the chorus and the direct audio off, and you get kind of like a vibrato. Beside the chorus, you've got an analog spring reverb, just one simple level control, and the nice spring reverb also in mono. Now these effects work in parallel to the tape echoes, so let's get the motor going again. So the reverb only applies to the direct signal and not to the repeats. And same goes for the chorus. It doesn't impact the repeats either. I think it would be nice to have an option to apply either or both, either to the incoming audio to the feedback loop or just to the main output. Okay, let's take a look at the pros and cons for the EF-X3, and I think that really depends on what you compare it to. To my knowledge, it's the only professional grade 4-playhead tape echo in production in the world today. The only other production tape delay I've heard of is the 2-head T-Rex replicator. If you're familiar with others, or if you're from the future and someone else makes one, please leave a comment below. Obviously, you could buy a vintage tape delay. Some of those go for cheaper than this. Then cons for that would be you'd have to deal with potential maintenance costs. And I think the main pro for the EF-X3, beside the fact that it's new and has a warranty, is the separate tape head outputs, making it a stereo ping pong delay or a quad delay. By the way, notice that it automatically stopped. That's because I wasn't sending it any audio. Anyway, stereo ping pong or quad ping pong is something I think is unheard of in the realm of tape delays. Again, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Now, real tape echoes aside, there are plenty of digital recreations aiming for the tape echo sound, both in software and hardware. In hardware form, the leader of the pack is probably Roland's own Space Echo, the Re-202. There are plenty of sound comparison videos out there between the 202 and an original Space Echo, between this and the EF-X3, and between the EF-X3 and a Space Echo. So I won't repeat that. Sound aside, obviously this costs way less, is way more portable, doesn't have any moving parts. And there are a few other important differences. The EF-X3 doesn't have a tap tempo function. You'll need to deal with that manually here, or set a repeat speed you like here and then use tap tempo on your other gear. This has real tape, but it's only one kind of tape. You can't change its wow or flutter unless you use it a lot or throw some dirt on it. And there are no tape age parameters here. It just is what it is. This doesn't have a chorus, but you can always add that externally with another pedal. Another important difference is, while this pedal is stereo, it's not a stereo ping pong delay. So you've got two inputs and they're processed on kind of like a stereo tape, but you can't configure the different taps to go to different speakers, at least not as of the current firmware. Whereas this gives you multiple stereo and ping pong style options. Delay times here go to a bit longer than this. This goes up to, I think, 1.2 seconds and this up to 2. Though I did reach out to ECHOFIX and ask if there's a little mod that I can do to this to get the tape to go slower. Obviously, that would impact quality and high frequencies, but it would be nice to get potentially lower quality and longer loops here. And then the Re-202 has a nice warp function, which basically lets you immediately loop whatever's in the delay buffer. You can do that here too, but you need to set the feedback just right so that it doesn't self-oscillate or fade out over time. So to summarize, this certainly isn't cheap, and there are plenty of digital hardware and software alternatives. But if you want a new in-warranty 4-head actual tape delay unit, the EF-X3 sounds great. It distorts really nicely with gain, has lovely sounding mono, chorus, and reverb effects, and is built by people who've been fixing and maintaining Space Echoes for years. So if there's a way to make these reliable and stand the test of time, ECHOFIX should be capable of doing it. So that's it for the EF-X3. If you liked the insights in this video, there are plenty more in my ever-expanding book of electronic music ideas, tips, and tricks, available to the people who support this channel on Patreon. Hit like if this was useful, ring the YouTube bell below if you want to make sure you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching.